Howdy. I just want to show everybody real quick, I'm wearing some new merch. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Got the logo there, and I got the, even though you can't read it, but Stay Creepy on the side. Yeah, it looks pretty cool. It's made of jersey material. It's pretty cool. Check out my Teespring links in the description if you want some. It's badass. Appreciate it. Now, on with the show. The Monster in the Black Forest. One year, Renee and I went to Germany to check out some German castles. We did a big loop around the entire country. We started in Berlin. We didn't see any castles in Berlin, but we did attend Reunification Day, basically Germany's Independence Day, which celebrates East Germany and West Germany reunifying to become Germany once again. It was very interesting and educational. We saw and walked through Brandenburg Gate. We saw what was left of the Berlin Wall and took a bus tour around the city. We also walked around an ancient graveyard. We're so morbid. Some of the gravestones had pockmarks from bullets hitting them during World War II. It was a lot easier than I thought to communicate with folks. Everyone under the age of 50 knew how to speak English very well. Good thing, because my German is scheisse. After a few days in Berlin, we took a train to the Hatzenport train station. On the way there, we got delayed by a couple of hours due to someone throwing themselves on the train tracks and passing on. We got lucky that a dude that was sitting with us was a young German, and he was translating the announcements for us. 'Cause like most Americans, we only know one language, and that's Spanish. We finally made it to our destination and got off the train. The station was in a small town outside of the castle. After walking around a little bit, we found the trail that goes through the Black Forest and leads to Burg Eltz Castle. The trail is a little over 3 miles long. It's a dirt trail and wide enough for an ATV in most places. So we decided to hoof it through the forest. It was about midday, so we had plenty of time. We started our trek through the woods. The landscape looked similar to Kentucky. The sounds of birds chirping and small critters running around in the leaves kept us company during the hike. We stopped several times to take a break. The trail went up and down hills. It was sprinkling rain, and some spots were a little dicey with the slippery mud, but we managed to fall and bust our ass a couple of times. At one point, we were taking a break and looking down over the side of the trail to the creek below. The trickling sound of water was soothing and helped us relax before going on. While we were enamored with the beautiful scenery, I heard something splashing around in the water. I looked in the direction of the sound. At first, all I could see was the creek, trees, and brush. I figured it must be a squirrel playing in the water or something. Right as I started to turn around and continue hiking, I saw something rather big move out of the corner of my eye. I jerked my head back and quickly tried to find the source of the movement. I could hear the leaves crunching below. I waved my hand for Renee to come over. I whispered, "I saw something moving down there, but I didn't get a good look at it. See if you can see anything." We continued scanning the valley. After a couple of minutes and not spotting or hearing anything, we decided to continue on. As we made our way along, we passed a few people going the other direction. Renee asked them if they knew of any strange creatures that roam the forest. Most said no. One person did say there is a known creature in the area and to be very careful. It's called the tatzelworm. It's a lizard or snake-like creature that's about 7 feet long. It's described as having the face of a cat with a serpent-like body, which may be slender or stubby, with 4 short legs or 2 forelegs. The alleged creature is said to be venomous and attacks with a poisonous breath. It makes a high-pitched hissing or whistling sound when it feels threatened. We thanked our fellow hiker and continued on. The hike took a very long time, about 2.5 to 3 hours probably. We finally emerged from the forest, and standing before us was the legendary Burg Eltz castle. My hands on my hips, I stood there in awe of its brilliance. We were out of the woods, but we still had a little bit to go to get to the castle. As we started up the hill, we both heard something moving behind us. We checked behind us, but didn't see anything. Although we could hear the leaves crunching like something was moving around. We kinda picked up the pace and got to the entrance to Burg Eltz. Exploring this historic medieval castle was fire. It was like stepping back in time. Unfortunately, we were not allowed to take any pictures inside the rooms. Fuck! Luckily, I found several pictures of the interior of the castle on the internet. As I was leaving one of the bedrooms, I felt someone tug on my shirt. I thought it might have gotten snagged on something or somebody was trying to get my attention. But nothing or nobody was there. I gave Renee a look of, what the fuck? But we carried on. As we walked through the dining room, we both heard the sound of dishes clinking. Like silverware tapping against a plate while you're eating. Renee covered her mouth with one hand and tugged on my coat with the other. She pointed to a place set at the dinner table. The fork was lightly bouncing up and down against the plate all on its own. I asked the tour guide about it. He said, "Yeah, sometimes the past residents of the castle like to make an appearance. I wouldn't worry about it." I wonder why he just didn't say, "We have ghosts," or "It's haunted." We continued the tour. We made it to an upstairs bedroom. Everything looked original. As we walked around the room, Renee heard a baby cry. No one else in the group heard it, not even me. There was a baby crib in the room. Renee went over to it. She squatted down to it and looked at it closely. After studying it, she got up to join me in leaving the room. As she did, she looked back at the crib. She noticed it was moving, just slightly, rocking back and forth. She said, "Who's over there by the crib?" She heard a low whisper that spoke in German. She didn't understand it, but said that the tone was that of a warning, which the whole German language sounds like that anyway. We continued on. We arrived in what looked like a living room. It had bearskin rugs and big game trophies mounted on the wall. As I stood there admiring the wall decor, I heard what sounded like a rock or a pebble rolling on the floor. I asked the spirits, "Why are you throwing things at me?" I got no response until I heard a growl or moan off to the side of the room. I looked in that direction and noticed the shadow of a tall man standing in the corner. It looked like his arms were crossed. I looked at it and said, "Guten Tag." The room got very cold. I could even see my breath. Renee was pulling on my arm to leave the room, but I wanted to see if I could get some kind of response. When I looked back at the corner, the shadow man was gone. The tour group started to leave the room, so we had to go. We made it to the last room on the tour. It looked like a stable area for horses. In it, it had old bridles, a cartwheel, an old trunk, and a rope and pulley for some reason. As we walked around the room, I pushed the rope in the center of the room. It swung back and forth in big, wide swings. I pushed it kind of hard. Renee asked me a question about something, so I turned to answer her. When I turned back around, like seconds later, the rope had stopped swinging and was completely still. It didn't have time to stop swinging on its own. Something stopped it. I was still the closest one to it, so nobody grabbed it and stopped it. I asked out loud, "Who stopped the rope from swinging?" A few seconds later, we heard, "Ishtat." One of the other tour participants also heard the voice and covered their mouth in surprise. I asked what that means in English. They said that it means, "I did." A cold chill ran down my arms and back. Scheisse! We made our way out of the castle and into the courtyard. We grabbed a quick bite to eat, beer and pretzels, and headed down toward the hiking trail. The sun was starting to get pretty low in the sky, so we headed out. As we were about to enter the forest, we turned around to take one final look at the historical castle. It's way too badass to try to explain. We started making our way back through the forest, heading for the train station to take us to our next destination on our little Bavarian tour. When we got a little ways into the forest, it started getting darker much faster than we anticipated. I think the leaves knocked a lot of the daylight out. We both had flashlights. We figured we'd probably need them in the dark castle, even though we really didn't. As we walked along the dark trail, Renee noticed that all the forest critters were quiet. No frogs, No crickets, no birds or anything. Just the sounds of leaves falling and the occasional trickle of the creek beside the trail. About 30 minutes further along, and it got dark enough that we needed our flashlights. We trudged forward, slowly along the muddy trail. Suddenly, I heard something moving in the leaves. I grabbed Renee's coat and put my finger to my mouth. "Turn out your light," I whispered. She did. We stood there in the middle of the black forest, in near pitch dark, listening. The steps sounded like whatever it was walking slowly on two legs. Renee hugged me tight. I told her, "It's okay, I got you," even though all I had for a weapon was a walking stick. The walking seemed to get fainter, like it was walking away from us. When we couldn't hear it anymore, we continued on. After slipping and busting my ass on a muddy hill, I heard more leaves rustling. This time, much closer. I shined my flashlight around to see if I could see what it was. I heard what sounded like a hiss. It was like a cat's hiss, only lower in tone. We took tactical positions. We stood back to back to get a 360-degree view of the murky surroundings. I saw some leaves on a tree branch move. "There!" I said. Renee spun around and locked her light on mine. We saw a set of glowing orange eyes looking at us. They were about 6 inches apart. We saw them blink. We froze in fear. At first, we didn't get a good look at it. It was partially covered by the leaves. As I crept closer to it, it hissed again. Chill bumps covered my body. I was about 15 feet away from it. Renee whispered, "Perry, what the fuck are you doing? Let's get out of here." I reached down and picked up a rock about the size of a golf ball. I threw it at the glowing eyes to scare it away. The rock hit its mark. I heard the thud of the rock hitting the creature's head. The beast made a high-pitched squeal and jumped from the tree and bounded away. A mist hung in the air where it once was. As it ran away, I caught a glimpse of its body. It looked like a snake with an oversized head. It used its forelegs to pull itself, along with slithering its tail to escape. I made my way to the tree it was in. When I got close, I could smell something awful, similar to the smell of battery acid. My nose started to burn and my eyes itched. I quickly backed away, rubbing my eyes. My nose started running and my eyes watered like crazy. We still had a little way to go. Looking back, I probably shouldn't have fucked with it. Renee helped me along until my eyes cleared up. We could see the trees opening up at the end of the trail. It was about 50 yards away. When we were about to emerge from the forest, we heard a low growl behind us. We both spun around simultaneously and saw what looked like a half-cat, half-lizard staring at us from the trail. It was propped up on its tail with its forelegs moving around like T-Rex arms. We walked backwards out of the forest the rest of the way. Our mouths dropped open and we kept our eyes glued on whatever the fuck this thing was. I might have pissed it off. Once we got to the trailhead, we turned around and hastily made our way to the train station. On the way, we noticed a statue of something that looked very familiar to what we just saw. When we got to the small train station platform, we were the only ones there. It was a little unnerving, but it was well lit. So at least we could get a good view at whatever was trying to kill us. While waiting for the train to arrive, we kept hearing the hissing and growling coming from the woods. We were both afraid this thing would come charging out of the forest and attack us. Thankfully, it didn't. After an hour or so, our train arrived. We quickly boarded and got seated. Our trip to Burg Eltz was much more exciting than we expected. That's an understatement. Not only did we get to visit a monumental piece of German history with paranormal occurrences, but we also encountered a dangerous cryptid and we didn't even know about it. From now on, I'm going to do a lot more research before we go on these adventures. You just never know what you'll run into.